Hello YouTube world, Mac Daddy 1911A1 here. Know thy enemy. We live in perilous and dangerous times, and we face the one thing we as humans fear the most: change. Change on such a rapid and grand scale that it is hard to try and keep up with. One of the tenets of combat that I believe in is know thyself. Know thy enemy and know thy battleground. Who is the real enemy that we face as freedom-loving individualists? What is the battleground we now do mortal combat on for our freedom, our very way of life? This struggle is not, at its heart, a gun issue. This is a social issue in which we battle for the right to think the way we choose. Let us identify our enemy. The enemy of our freedom has a name. They call themselves progressive liberals, modern liberals, and or progressive Democrats. By any other name, they are communists, social democrats, thugs, and elitists. For the sake of a common name, I will use the term modern liberals. What is it that these modern liberals want? They will tell you they desire a safe society, a world where there is no nasty guns and or fighting, no pollution, no wars or famines or droughts, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, or sinkholes. A world where everyone gets along and sits around campfires, non-polluting, non-carbon emitting campfires to be sure, every night singing "Hail to Obama" and making s'mores. In other words, a utopia, i.e. paradise on earth. How special. So according to liberals, they do it in the name of and for the good of the people, or the common good. Have you ever tried to debate with a modern liberal? How did that work out for you? I would suspect you walked away thinking, what an idiot. Generally, as you begin to try and use reason and logic, they twist your words, or change the subject, or jump subject to subject until you ended up feeling like you were having a religious discussion with a Jehovah's Witness on your front doorstep. That's not too far off the mark. The modern liberal has been brainwashed and programmed to believe the party agenda and have left logic and reason behind long ago. While most modern liberals are very intelligent people, book-wise, they have abandoned reason and logic for their party agenda alone. So why is it when we free thinkers try to engage in a conversation or a debate with modern liberals, we walk away so frustrated? For two people to have a debate or an intelligent conversation, they must have a common middle ground or starting point on which to communicate. It is like the child's game rock, paper, scissors. If you believe rock beats paper, but your opponent believes paper beats rock, then you'll never be able to play the game without a lot of pointless arguing. That is what the problem is between a free thinker and a modern liberal. We are playing by different sets of rules. Therefore, we only end up with a pointless argument anytime we try to engage with a modern liberal. Each of us believes our set of rules is correct. Therefore, we spend all of our time trying to explain to each other that the set of rules we believe in are the correct and or true set of rules. Which brings us to the true root of the problem that we face in this country as the social elitists gain control of our society. Truth. Truth, you see, is at the heart of modern liberal belief. They do not believe in an absolute truth. At the heart of their ideology is modern relativism, which states your truth is as good as any truth, and my truth is as good as your truth. So at the end of the day, truth is relative, according to modern liberal Democrats, or modern liberal progressives. It's malleable, or malleable. To the modern liberal, truth is nothing more than silly putty, to be molded to fit whatever the flavor of the day is. When your truth is not absolute, then neither are your morals. Without an absolute truth, there is no right nor wrong. Or more to the point, without absolute truth, there is no absolute right or absolute wrong. So if your truth is silly putty, so is your sense of right and wrong. And if your morals are silly putty, then what is the foundation from which you argue from? The party line, I suppose, which leads us to the chaos we find the world in right now. If there is no truth, no absolute right or absolute wrong, then all you are left with is do as thou wilt. Is this not the modern liberals' rally call? It is, after all, the modern liberals that have spearheaded the removal of God and the Bible and Judeo-Christian values from government and society in general. Again, how is that working for us in general? This is why they attack us through every media outlet they have at their disposal. Why? Simple. If your truth and right and wrong comes from the Bible and therefore God, then it is absolute. If truth, right, and wrong comes from man, then it is ever-changing. For modern liberals, there can be no right and or wrong, therefore they must diligently destroy all that is good or what represents what is right. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen, just for a moment. 50 years ago, racism in this country, well, maybe 60 years ago, it was okay. Times have changed. Man has changed. We have seen that it is wrong, it is ignorant, it is stupid. Okay? 40 years ago, being gay or lesbian was considered wrong. Now look at what's going on in the world. Every time you turn on the TV or the radio and the news comes on, they're pushing their pro-gay agenda. 50 years ago, the 10 Commandments were revered. Our entire legal system is based on those 10 Commandments. Think about it. Thou shalt not kill. In other words, thou shalt not murder. Okay? But then in 1973, they made it okay for the abortion. The murder of an unborn baby. Okay? Where will it lead next? Nowadays, being a child molester is shunned, and people look down on those folks. They want them to go to jail. Me, I'd like to chop them up with a freaking axe. What's going to happen in 50 years on that front? Think about it. So, man is ever changing. Our whims, our rights, and our wrongs. The Bible lays it out. The 10 Commandments are there. You obey those 10 Commandments, you live and prosper. When you start manipulating them, screwing around with them, the next thing you have is what we have now, chaos. Drug trade, sex slave trade, child molestation, rape, murder, on and on and on and on. Okay. Therefore, the terrorists that destroyed the World Trade Center become misunderstood freedom fighters, and the founders of our country, who fought in a revolutionary war, became racist white thugs that displaced the Native Americans and made a land grab from their rightful masters. You see, when your truth is elastic, you can stretch it any way you want. Now, as Obama enters his second term, the modern liberals have begun the all-out assault on guns. They blame guns for Columbine, for Aurora, Sandy Hook, and all other tragedies that have occurred as of late. We need to get rid of the guns. They are evil. They have no purpose but to kill, maim, and destroy. Guns have caused all this tragedy. I disagree. The cause of all these tragedies was caused by one thing: the ideology of the modern liberals. Their destruction of absolute truth and absolute wrong. Their removal of God and the Bible from our society. Their destruction of absolutes from our society is the major cause of the tragedies that occurred at Sandy Hook, not guns. In the absence of absolutes, the philosophy, do as thou wilt, reigns. If this is all there is no heaven above me or hell below me, then anything goes without an absolute truth. Then all restraints are removed. All barriers are torn down. If there is no God, then they believe I am God. If I am God, then my words and will be done. Take Columbine. Those boys were being picked on by the jocks. Nothing was being done about it. So they took up arms and did as they would. In every other shooting, tragedy, and mass murder that has occurred in their wake, they were simply following the modern liberals' philosophy. I am the ultimate source of right and wrong. So feel the wrath of my will being done. In the land of no absolutes, the first victim is always life. Sanctity of life becomes a moot point. Those that are deemed a drain on society, the elderly, the invalids, the mentally handicapped, the insane, they say, hey, all these people are just using up our resources. I remember watching films of the Nazis walking into hospital wards and machine gunning helpless patients. You see, in the modern liberal search for utopia, their quest for paradise turns our world into a living hell. You see, to be a modern liberal, you must give up logic and reason, which are the two cornerstones of society in general. Don't believe it? Using logic and reason, let's dissect the foundation of the modern liberal's beliefs. Your truth is as good as my truth, and my truth is as good as your truth. Okay, let's say you believe purple monkeys are sacred, and I believe monkeys make good eating. The knife of logic and reason would dictate that either A, one of us is right and one of us is wrong, or B, both of us are wrong. So for the modern liberal, logic and reason must be avoided at all costs. In the absence of logic and reason, emotion reigns. Watch the news and it will not take you long to see how modern liberals always use emotions to make their appeals, or they ride the wake of an emotional event. In fact, this is not just a liberal tactic, but rather a political tactic in general. Last week, when the Senate failed to pass the background check bill, we saw President Obama and the families of the victims from Sandy Hook go out there and do his little interview, and he was all upset and mad, and he showed he was upset and pissed off at the world, and the victims, oh, how sad they were, using the emotional appeal. Right there it is. Do you think that the Patriot Act would have been passed if it were not introduced in the wake of the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and so forth? When you argue from emotion, when Obama made his executive orders, he did so with the children from the Sandy Hook tragedy on stage, front and center. At any other time, do you think they would attack a constitutional right so openly and self-righteously? Only in the emotional wake of such a tragedy would they dare make such an assault. As those of us who try make a logical and reasonable appeal to this attack, we walk away looking cold and emotionless. As we defend our freedom and right to free thinking, the liberal talking heads say things like, don't you care about these dead children at all? Doesn't this tragedy bother you at all? Of course it does. But not as much as the thought of being left defenseless and helpless at the hands of the people who do not believe in truth or right or wrong. A Nazi is a Nazi is a Nazi, no matter what name you may call him by. A commie is a commie is a commie, no matter how you dress him up. or what flowery title you give him. Shit by any other name is steel. Steel smells like shit, therefore it is. Stalin and Mao's regimes make Hitler's Third Reich look like a Sunday school picnic, and that is the absolute, excuse me, and that, my friends, is what a social democrat, a social elitist, or a modern liberal is. A freaking communist. The end results of their efforts will be the same as their predecessors. I can guarantee you that. There is a proverb in the Bible that says, before you tear down the fence, find out why it was put there in the first place. Why do you wonder that our founding fathers based our laws on the Judeo-Christian beliefs of the Bible? Why? Again, back to logic and reason. Modern liberals would have you believe that the church and the state have an impenetrable wall between them. Otherwise, us nasty Christians and Jews would inflict our religion upon you. That is not the case. The founders based our country's laws on God and the Bible because, as I have said before, if God is the creator, then his truth is the final truth. His right is the absolute right. His wrong is the absolute wrong. Being God and unchanging, the truth and moral value become set into stone, unchangeable. Everyone has an even ground and a common point from which to argue and make their case from. As a Christian, I would no more force my beliefs down another man's throat than I would my gun. Because here's a fact that modern liberals don't want you to know. While God can do anything he wants, he has given us free will to willingly obey and worship him or to reject him. In my belief system and the majority of the Christian belief systems, God wants us to come to him and love him and obey him out of our own free will. For us to be able to accept him, we must be able to reject him. For our own good, to be good, we must be able to do wrong. Despite what the humanists might have you to believe, it is our natural tendency to do wrong. You don't believe me? Everybody thinks children are absolutely and totally innocent. What about when you tell them not to get the cookies out of the cookie jar? All right. Even a 2-year-old will do things he's not supposed to do, or she. You tell them not to do it, they'll do everything in their power to do it. That's just our nature. We are born into sin. So, for the modern liberal utopia to exist, free will must be destroyed. For their safe society to exist, personal choice must be taken away. So the social elitists toil day and night for their vision of a one-world government, where 1% of the population owns everything, where 80% of the present population is eliminated and the remaining 19% serve as the 1%'s slaves. This is the future that the likes of Obama, Bush, the Clintons, and all the rest are working towards. Not world peace, but rather world domination. America is the last man standing in the way of the social elitist and modern liberals' dream of paradise. The modern liberals are destroying our beloved republic from the inside out. It was once written that there is nothing worse than a traitor. They look like you, they talk like you, think like you, only they are willing to sell you out for 30 pieces of silver. We as a country have been taken over by these modern liberals. They preach tolerance, even when they themselves give none. They teach, do as thou wilt, as long as it is what we say. In return, they teach that there is no right or wrong. Of course, it must fit our agenda, according to them. I can't be wrong because I'm right. They will strip you of your rights, your freedoms, and your power of choice and tell you it's for the greater good. There is but one way to stop this madness. We must give the power back to who it belongs, God. Whether you believe in God as a person or an entity, we must at least believe in him as an institution. Whether you accept the Bible as a religious text, let us at least agree that it is a historical text. If we can believe in it as a historical text, then we can read it and see the end result of those who have taken the truth out of God's hands into their own. We must return to the truth, the absolute truth of the Bible and the moral values it teaches. If not, then our great republic will implode in upon itself. The one world government will be instituted, and hell on earth will reign. From our positions of power nationally to our positions of power locally, yes, okay, let me redo that last part. The one world government will be instituted, and hell on earth will reign. From our positions of power nationally to our positions of power locally. God is a God of love. He gave His only begotten Son so that we might have a personal relationship with Him and be restored to our true selves. With that said, He is also a righteous God and a God of justice. He is a righteous judge, and He is not to be mocked. Do not mistake His long-suffering kindness as indifference or weakness. If we follow the path of modern liberals and do as thou wilt, just know that there are consequences now and eternal consequences later. We must rise up and defend what is right with our lives if necessary. Otherwise, we lose our most precious gift from God, the freedom of personal choice. Tell me, is being safe worth being a slave? Not for me. I believe I would rather live or die hard trying. Know thy enemy, by our wonderful member, Uncle Fester, down in South Georgia. He wrote that, and I agree with it 110%. This is Mac Daddy 1911A1 with the Shade Tree Survivalist. Thank you for watching.